Good morning, children. Hope you are safe at home. Today we will do a lesson called The King of the Golden River. And today we will only read part 1 of this story. Let's start reading this lesson. Long, long ago, in the mountainous part of a country, there was a fertile valley. So, this is a story about a long time ago, and it's in a country where there are a lot of mountains. And just below those mountains, there was a fertile valley. Fertile means the soil over there is very rich, and that's why you can grow a lot of crops out there. There were many waterfalls leaping down the mountain tops, but not into the valley. They all ran down the other side of the mountain. One of the falls was very high and shone like gold in the beams of the evening sun. People called it the Golden River. So, up in those mountains, there were many waterfalls that were falling down the mountain tops. But these waterfalls never reached the valley. They all ran down the other side of the mountain. In all those waterfalls, there was one waterfall which was very high. And when the sun used to shine in the evening, this waterfall used to shine like gold in the sun's rays. And that's why people call this waterfall the Golden River. Now, though there were no streams running down to the valley itself, the wind constantly brought the clouds to the valley. So, as we seen, all of those waterfalls were taking the water to the other side of the mountain. So, none of that water was running through the valley. But the winds that were there were constantly bringing clouds to the valley. Even when the rest of the country was dry, it always rained in the valley. As we know, when clouds come, we get a lot of rain. So, because of these winds which were bringing clouds to the valley, there was always rain in this valley. In the valley, the wind and the clouds made the crops green, the hay high, the apples red, the grapes purple, and the honey sweet. People called it the Treasure Valley. So, children, because of the wind and the clouds that brought in so much of rain, they grew a lot of crops, plants, and trees in that valley. So, there was a lot of greenery and there were trees which gave a lot of fruit to the people. That's why people call this valley as the Treasure Valley because you would get all kinds of food over there. The Treasure Valley belonged to three brothers, Schwartz, Hans, and Gluck. So, this Treasure Valley belonged to three brothers whose names were Schwartz, Hans, and Gluck. The two elder brothers were big, ugly, and wicked. So, two of the bigger brothers were very huge, were ugly looking, and were very wicked. They were good farmers, but they killed everything that was not profitable for them. Profitable means they couldn't make any money out of it and earn for themselves. So, though they were good farmers, they would kill anything that was not useful to them. Even little things like blackbirds and hedgehogs and crickets. So, even blackbirds, hedgehogs, which are tiny animals, and crickets, which are insects. Anything that was not useful to them, they would kill. They did not treat their servants well and gave them only poor wages. Wages means salary. So, whoever used to work for them, they treated them very badly and they used to pay them very little money. They waited till the corn had become very expensive in the market and then sold it for twice its value. So, they not only used to ill treat their people working for them, but whatever they they used to sell in the market at double the price and cheat the people. They were very rich, but they never ever gave even so much as a penny to the poor. So as you can see, the treasure valley belonged to them. That means they were the owners of so much of food and they used to sell it at double the rate. So they were very rich, making a lot of money. But they never even gave a single penny to the poor people. People called them the Black Brothers. Why Black Brothers? Because they were very mean, wicked, and treated people very badly. So these three brothers were called as the Black Brothers. The youngest of the three brothers was only 12 years old. So the smallest boy was only 12 years old. He was still very tiny. He was just the opposite of his brothers. He was kind to every living thing, though his own brothers were cruel to him and made him do all the cooking and the mending and the housework for them. So this little boy was a complete opposite of his two older brothers. He was not cruel and wicked like them. Instead, he was a very kind boy. And he even treated all the living creatures nicely. Because of this, his brothers didn't like him. So they used to treat him badly too. They used to make him do all the housework, any sort of repair work, and all the cooking for them too. So most of the time he used to stay at home doing all the work for them. One evening the two brothers had gone out. As usual, they had warned Gluck to let nobody in and give nothing out. Gluck was to get their dinner ready for them. So one evening the two older brothers had gone out and as usual they told Gluck, "See that you don't allow anybody to come home inside and you're not supposed to give anything from the home outside to them. And you have to stay in the house and cook food for us till we are back." It was raining very hard outside and the weather was very cold. Just then there was a double knock on the door. Gluck went to the window and put his head out to see who it was. So that day when the two brothers left and Gluck was alone at home, it was raining very heavily and it was windy and chilly. Suddenly Gluck heard a knock at the door. Instead of opening the door, he went to the window and looked out of the window to see who it was. He saw the most extraordinary looking gentleman standing at the door. So he saw a gentleman dressed very differently standing at the door. The strange visitor was very short, with a large nose, red cheeks, curly moustache, and merry twinkling eyes. So he looked very different. He was short, he had a big nose, red cheeks, his mustache was curly, and he had very happy twinkling eyes. He wore a conical cap. Conical cap is just like your party hats that you have. It's pointed at the top. So he wore this conical cap as high as himself. Means the cap was very big. And a cloak 4 times as long. Cloak is like a long jacket. And this cloak that he wore was so much bigger compared to his size. I am wet. Let me in, said the stranger. So because it was raining heavily, he was completely wet. So he looked at Gluck and said, I'm completely wet in this rain. Will you let me inside your house? I beg pardon, sir, said Gluck. So Gluck is saying sorry to him. I'm very sorry, but I really can't. My brothers would beat me to death if I did any such thing. So Gluck also told him the reason why he couldn't allow him to come home. His brothers would beat him and kill him if they came to know that he disobeyed them and allowed an outsider in the house. But Gluck saw how hard it was raining and how cold it was and how wet the gentleman looked. So he opened the door and let the stranger in. As you all know, Gluck was a very kind boy. He felt very sorry for this man who was completely wet outside and was standing in the chilly wind. So, because he felt sorry, he opened the door and allowed him in. Gluck thought he would let the stranger get warm inside for some time and ask him to leave before his brothers came home. So this was what was in his mind, that let him come inside for some time, let him eat something and dry himself up and leave soon before the brothers come back home. The stranger, however, had no plans of leaving. So this is a picture of the stranger. And once he was inside, he went on talking to Gluck and was enjoying himself in the home. In fact, he told Gluck that he had had nothing to eat for 2 days and was very hungry. It melted Gluck's heart to hear this. So he decided to give the stranger a part of his own dinner. So the stranger man told Gluck that because he was lost in this weather, he had not eaten food for the last 2 days and he was very hungry and weak. Gluck felt sorry for the stranger and he decided that whatever was his part of the dinner, he would share it with the stranger. Before the stranger had eaten it, however, the wicked brothers returned. They were shocked to see the little gentleman sitting in the house. So while the stranger was eating the food, the two older brothers returned back home and they were very shocked to see that their brother Gluck had allowed the stranger to come home and also eat dinner. At once the brothers began to shout at Gluck. Schwartz threw a rolling pin at Gluck. The brothers were very angry with Gluck, so they began yelling and shouting at Gluck. And Schwartz, the older brother, threw a rolling pin. That is, a rolling pin is what we use to roll out chapatis. He threw that rolling pin at Gluck. At that instant, the stranger put in his conical cap and the rolling pin went spinning to a corner of the room. So the moment the rolling pin was thrown at Gluck, The stranger wore his long pointed hat, and when he did that, the rolling pin suddenly spun to the corner of the room and did not reach Gluck. The brothers turned to the visitor and ordered him to get out of the house. The little man asked them humbly to let him stay as it was so cold and wet outside. But the evil brothers wouldn't listen. After this, the older brothers turned to the stranger and told him, "Immediately leave our house." But the old man requested them, "Can you please help me? Let me stay a little longer because the weather is so bad outside. Give me a place to stay." But the evil brothers were very angry and they didn't want to listen to the stranger. They rushed at the old man to throw him out of the house. To their surprise, they found that they couldn't touch him. Instead, they were themselves swept into the corner with the rolling pin. So when the angry brothers rushed to the stranger to carry him and throw him out of the house, again some magical thing happened. They couldn't touch him. Instead, they both two were thrown to the corner of the room along with the rolling pin. Then the old gentleman gathered his cloak and cap and said, "At 12 o'clock tonight I'll call again. But since you have treated me so badly, it will be the last visit I pay you." Then he went away like a whirlwind. Finally, the old gentleman was angry. He took his cloak and wore his cap and said, "At 12 o'clock in the night, I'll call you again. You have treated me so badly, and this will be the last visit I pay you." And he disappeared. That night, a big storm woke the brothers. It shook the house and blew away the roof. Once again, the wicked brothers saw the strange visitor. He was sitting on a cloud, bobbing up and down. So, the same night that all this happened, there was a very bad storm. The brothers woke up hearing the storm. The house was in a mess, and the roof of the house was blown away by the storm. And when the wicked brothers looked out, they saw the same stranger, and this time he was sitting on top of a cloud. What did he tell them? "You may go to your brother's room. I have not damaged it," he told Hans and Schwartz. "Remember, this is my last visit. You will find my card on the table." And with those words, he disappeared. So he told them, "Y'all can go to your brother's room. I have not destroyed your brother's room, only the rest of your house. Remember, I had told y'all this would be my last visit, and I have kept my card on your table." And he disappeared again. In the morning, the brothers saw from the window that the storm had swept away whole trees and crops from the treasure valley. Everywhere they saw only red sand and grey mud. The valley was a picture of ruin. Ruin means completely destroyed. So when they woke up in the morning and they looked outside, they seen that their valley was completely destroyed. All the trees, the crops, the plants had been taken away. What was left was just mud and sand. It was totally destroyed. The brothers then crept into the kitchen. Crept means they slowly crawled into the kitchen. On the kitchen table there was a small white card. So here is the card that the stranger had left on the kitchen table. And what does it say? Southwest Wind Esquire. So this was a story about how the stranger had come for help, and when the brothers refused, it destroyed their entire house and their valley. And who was this? The southwest winds, which brings in rainfall. The next part of the story we will read in the next lesson. Let's read some of the meanings from this topic. Fertile means able to produce great crops. Beams are the rays. Wages is money that is paid for the work that a person does. Mending means repairing. Cloak is a warm piece of clothing. Bobbing means moving quickly. That was all in today's lesson, children. We'll continue the next part in the next topic. Thank you and have a nice day.